I recently purchased from Cornwall Canoes a second fishing kayak as an additional kayak to the Prowler Big Game I currently use, to be used for certain fishing situations I face that would be more suitable than the Big Game. After looking at several kayaks that fell within my budget, I decided on the Wilderness Systems Thresher 140. The kayak is 14 foot 3 inches long and 28 3/4 inches wide, weighs 75 pounds and has a capacity of 400 pounds. Some of my fishing trips involve a great deal of paddling, moving from mark to mark, or constant paddling back up tide upwind to reset drifts, or trolling several miles along the shoreline, or paddling a fair distance out to sea to a mark. At 14 foot 3 inches long and 28 3/4 inches wide, the Thresher will be faster than my Big Game, which is 34 inches wide. I've already tested the speed of the kayak at sea, and with a steady paddle I clocked speeds between 3.5 and 4.2 miles per hour, depending on the conditions. My Big Game averages between 2.5 miles per hour and 3.5 miles per hour, and although the Thresher is not an ultra fast kayak, the extra speed and ease of movement through the water will be useful on those days involving a great deal of paddling. One thing I did not want to sacrifice for extra speed was stability, and the company Wilderness advertised the kayak as efficient and quick, yet stable and predictable to handle ever-changing open water conditions. Although I am yet to test the kayak in testing conditions, from the testing I have done so far, it does feel like a stable fishing platform, which is very important to me. Having this kayak has given me the opportunity to do an overview for those of you thinking of taking up kayak fishing or just looking for another kayak. I will also be making a series of videos on setting up the kayak for fishing, such as fitting an anchor trolley, fitting a fish finder and rod holders. So I hope you find this useful. Starting at the bow of this kayak, got a moulded in handle here, which actually is really solid when you need to move the kayak. And also what Wilderness have done with the bow of the kayak here, and I don't know whether it will show on camera, but it's flared up slightly at the bow there. Now this is said to help you if you're launching through the surf, or just generally pushing through waves, slightly flared up bow. But we'll test that when I actually do have to launch through the surf, just to see whether it does make it a little bit easier. Now most bow hatches on kayaks give you access to the inside of the kayak, but what Wilderness have done here, they've actually made this into a storage compartment, which could be used for a variety of different things. You've got optional scupper bungs here to keep it dry, therefore it could be used as dry storage. Maybe you could keep your kayak trolley in there when you're out on the water, or maybe some extra equipment in dry bags. Or what I see a really good use for this is actually for fish storage. Maybe put some ice blocks in here, or extra ways of keeping the fish cool. So when I first took this out on the water, I wanted to check how easy it was to get access to this and actually put fish in. And you can shuffle forward from your seat here onto the center hatch here and get far enough forward to put fish in, or maybe take hold of a dry bag and get access to extra equipment that you're carrying out with you. So yeah, it's a good idea and an alternative to the normal bow hatch, to have this extra storage space. And the lid there is very easy to undo and do back up again. You've got these rubber clips here that just easily just clip over. So yeah, good alternative to the normal bow hatch. Now one of the absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, absolutely brilliant things about this kayak is this compartment here, which is called an OS pod. I think the OS stands for oversized pod. And the idea is that it's for mounting your fish finder, mounting your transducer, and also as a battery box. And if we just undo it, so the idea is that you mount your fish finder on the top here, and then underneath here is where you mount your transducer. Now that is absolutely fantastic, because the hassle of actually fitting a transducer, which is usually either fitted inside the hull of the kayak and it reads through the hull of the kayak, or with a through scupper transducer mount, this to me is absolutely brilliant, that you can mount your transducer on this. And most fish finders, when you buy them, come with a transducer mount, usually for maybe fitting on the transom of a boat, which is what my Garmin fish finder came with. So I can just fit that mount on the bottom of this and then run the wires through the back here and into the box, and we'll have a look at the inside of the box in a moment. Now it's got this fantastic recess here for your transducer. So of course the other great advantage of this is that the transducer is actually sitting in the water rather than reading through the kayak. But it's a very, very deep recess there, and therefore the transducer is going to be protected when you actually land the kayak on maybe a beach, or maybe a little bit of a stony beach, or some rocks where it could get damaged. So if I pop that back and we have a look at underneath, so there, if you can imagine, there you've got your transducer mounted on the bottom of that OS pod, and you've got that deep recess, and therefore there's no way that when you land that transducer is going to get damaged. Yet it is sitting in the water. So to me, this is an absolutely brilliant idea from Wilderness. So if we take a look inside this OS pod, which is where you would put your electrical wires and your battery, just comes undone by this screw here, and there you've got plenty of room and dry storage for your battery and all your wires. And for me, and I say I'll do a video on actually fitting my fish finder to this. What I have the wires from the fish finder coming through there, and the wire from the transducer coming from the back there, and tuck it all neatly inside here with the battery sitting inside. Because the other really useful thing about this OS pod is that because it's removable, you can just take the whole lot as one piece, the fish finder, the battery and the transducer, and take it indoors, maybe to easily just recharge your battery. So yeah, fantastic idea there, and this is going to make it very, very easy for me to fit a fish finder and the transducer as well. Moving on now to the center hatch here. Now for me, from my experience of kayak fishing, it's really, really useful to have a center hatch that gives you access to the inside of the kayak. And I wouldn't want to have a fishing kayak now that doesn't give me easy access to the inside of the kayak from my seat, which this does. And once again, it just very, very easily unclips and gives you easy access to the inside. And that can be used for a variety of things. Once again, it can be used for fish storage, which is probably what I'll use it for, as I do with my big game. Or you can maybe just put some tackle boxes in here, or dry bags, or whatever. Or even if you dismantle your rods, I understand that the rods will actually fit inside here, maybe if you're landing in the surf, just in case you go over. But yeah, great to have easy access to the inside of the kayak, and for me it's a must. Now the other thing that's really useful on this particular center hatch is that Wilderness have popped on this track system here, and that can be used for a variety of things. What I intended to use it for is to pop a rod holder on here and also fit my GPS. Also got some bungee cord on here which can be useful to strap things down that you need easy access to, maybe pliers or fish grips or whatever you want to use. So great to have a center hatch. Going further on from this track system here, you've got a track system on the side of the kayak here, and exactly the same on the other side. And I can't tell you how useful it is to have a kayak, buy a kayak that's actually got a track system. It makes it so much easier for you to mount things like rod holders or whatever you want to mount to the side of the kayak, rather than having to drill holes in the kayak. And what I tend to do with this kayak, and you'll see when I make the series of fitting videos, is that this is going to be a strictly no drill policy, and having these makes that, of course, so much easier to be able to do that. Just in front of the seat, got a couple of recesses here which is covered by this rubber mesh, one each side of the kayak, and that could be really useful for keeping accessories that you need to have at hand when you're fishing. Looking at the seat now, of course, now when you go out for 6 to 8 hours fishing, a comfortable seat is really important. And sitting in the seat of a kayak for 6 to 8 hours, as most of us know, is not exactly the most comfortable way to fish. So the comfort of the seat is important, and I've noticed that recently that kayak fishing seats seem to be really improving when it comes to comfort, and this is one of them. And it's got 3 adjustments. You've got an adjustment for the leg rest at the front of the seat here, where this can be raised up or lowered down to give you a bit more support for your legs. It's got the usual, adjusted by the straps here, the usual backrest adjustment where you can have it either forward to give you a bit more sturdy support, or backwards to suit your needs. But also it can be adjusted up and down. Now I'm quite tall, so I like to have it at its highest point, quite high, but if you're a little bit shorter and you want to lower this back support down, you can. So yeah, great seat, and very comfortable from what I've experienced going out on the water testing this so far. The other thing with this seat, from the point of view of storage or transportation on the roof rack on the car, is that this will actually, just by undoing these bungee clips here, actually just folds down flat, but once again could be really useful. Just behind the seat you've got these 2 flat areas here, again one each side, and what they have been put there for is should you want to fit flush mounted rod holders, and there is enough room here to actually fit 2 side by side for storing the rods. But that's just personal. I'm not going to touch it because like I said earlier, I want a strictly no drill policy on this kayak, and I can store my rods in other ways. But you've got the option there if you want to put flush mounted rod holders. You've got this lovely flat surface, or other things if you want to put another track system on here, then you've got the space to do it. It's got a nice big tank well on this kayak to use for whatever you want to use it for, whether it be for your crate or your dry box or dry bags or fish storage. And the other good thing about this tank well, apart from the fact that it's a decent size, you've got the usual bungee cords here for strapping down, but what they've done is they also put these built-in straps, and that could be actually very useful, and it's certainly going to be useful for me for fitting my dry box on the back, or for strapping down your crate. So a nice little addition there from Wilderness that you don't normally see in the tank wells of kayaks. The other thing that it's got on the back of the tank well here, you've got this little area here where if you wanted to, you could fit a little round hatch to give you further access to the inside of the kayak. But once again, I don't personally I don't see any need for that, so I'm not going to bother. More really useful track system put in here, just be to the side of the tank well here, one each side of the kayak, and once again fantastic for whatever you want to use it for. You can buy these ram balls or mounts that just slide on these tracks, and I'm going to fit my camera mount on the back here. And once again, like I said before, great to have these actually built into the kayak when you buy it, rather than having to fit them yourself and drill into the kayak yourself to fit them. Just beyond the rear tank well, you've got another moulded in handle, really solid handle for when you're moving the kayak around. And then I've got a rudder. Now, when I ordered this kayak, I made the decision to order it with rudder. You can buy it with rudder or without rudder. And the reason I decided to have with rudder is from the experience that I've gained so far using the kayak without the rudder. And most times it's okay, except when you're going you're being hit from on the side by a side wind. And what can happen, you find you have to paddle more one side than the other to keep the kayak straight. And what the wind does, the wind picks up the widest and highest part of the kayak and pushes that, and it gives the impression that the bow, the feeling that the bow is always turning into the wind, and it can be really annoying having to paddle, double or treble paddle one side to keep the kayak straight. So although I've got the rudder, I doubt if I'll be using the rudder all of the time. I'll probably just use it on those occasions when I'm being hit by that side wind. To raise or lower the rudder, you've got these controls here, easy access from your seat, and you've got one here to actually lower the rudder, and then of course the opposite to actually raise the rudder. And then the rudder controls are the usual foot pedal controls, left and right, which is pretty standard on most kayaks that they've got a rudder system. Along the side of the kayak, you've got this, and it's the same both sides. You've got these grab lines or safety lines, which are reflective if you're out at night, which could be useful. But what I'm going to find this very useful for is these fitments that come with the kayak. The grab line, actually, you can just see in there, the grab line runs through a hole at the bottom, but you've got these spare holes at the top there. What I intend to use those for is to fit a no-drill anchor trolley, and I'll be making a video of how I do that later on. Well, that's a quick overview of this kayak, and as far as I'm concerned, credit where credit is due to Wilderness for making this kayak advertised as a fishing kayak with so many accessories on it that are useful for fishing. Many times when you buy a kayak that's advertised as a fishing kayak, you get maybe a couple of flush mounted rod holders, or if you're lucky 4 flush mounted rod holders, and that's then considered to be a fishing kayak. But Wilderness, or the team at Wilderness, have really thought about this from the point of view of the serious angler, the serious fisherman. Little things like making the front hatch a storage facility for maybe possibilities of keeping your fish or whatever you want to do. And what is absolutely brilliant is this OS pod for mounting your fish finder, for mounting your transducer, and for as a battery box for your battery, dry storage for your battery and your wires. Absolutely brilliant. Making sure that it's got a center hatch, which gives you good access to the inside of the kayak, rather than just maybe a little round hatch that is only really any good for putting a maybe tackle box or maybe dry bags inside the kayak. But this gives you good access to the inside of the kayak for whatever you want to use that for. And also having loads of track systems on the kayak, on the center hatch here, one each side, and then a couple more just behind the seat to the side of the tank well. Makes life so much easier. So yeah, I mean, like any fishing kayak, it doesn't come with everything, and of course you always need to fit things, accessories to suit your fishing needs. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a few videos of fitting the accessories that I need for my fishing, and that's going to include the fitting of the fish finder and the transducer and the battery to the OS pod, fitting rod holders and GPS to these track systems here, and also fitting an anchor trolley and anything else that I think might be useful for anyone that actually purchases one of these kayaks. So once again, I hope you found that useful, and many thanks for watching.